Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel Biodiversity and Conservation. I'm Subhalakshmi Raut from Ambika Prasad Research Foundation, India, and today we are going to continue our UGC NET Examination Environmental Science series. Today we are going to study on Unit 3 Environmental Biology, second part, and today's topic is ecosystem and its structure. Basic knowledge. What is an ecosystem? Ecosystem, when we think about ecosystem, we cannot say a particular living organism or a non-living organism. It actually comprises of living, non-living, and its whole environment. So, no organism can live in an isolated um, void. So each of them is surrounded with some physical or chemical factors other than living organisms. So living organisms in a community not only interact among themselves but also have functional relationship with non-living environment. So the structural and functional system of communities and the environment is called an ecosystem. It means that there are some living organisms like bacteria, planktons, protozoans, plants, animals. They interact with non-living things like sunlight, rainfall, uh, temperature change, humidity, all those combine together to form an ecosystem along with the environment. So the ecosystem is a central concept in modern ecology. So the ecological study of ecosystems is called ecosystem ecology, and understanding the structure and function of all the ecosystem is the actual concern of an ecologist. Who want to become an ecologist should know about every component of an ecosystem, how they live, what affects them. So we're going to progress on that in this unit, in this part. So what are the characteristics of an ecosystem? An ecosystem um, is an actually open system where we receive energy, we give out energy, but internally, internally it is a self-regulating system. You can ask me why, how. Uh, if we close a ecosystem, let's say pond ecosystem. So in the pond ecosystem, there are fishes, there are plants, there are zooplanktons, phytoplanktons. All those actually give some energy and take some energy. But on a whole system, the energy inside the pond remains same. It is neither increased nor decreased. So this actually helps to balance the or to maintain the equilibrium inside the ecosystem. So as we say, there is the state of equilibrium as homeostasis. So in every ecosystem there is a requirement to balance this equilibrium. If this equilibrium is disturbed, then it affects the ecosystem harshly. Like it may if there is increase in carbon dioxide inside the pond ecosystem, then there will be death of all the fishes because they require oxygen to breathe and there is no oxygen due to presence of high amount of carbon dioxide. Then the pond ecosystem will not survive. So so there are some characteristics of an ecosystem. Ecosystem is a major structural and functional unit of ecology. Ecology is a study of ecosystem and its environment, and so this ecosystem is a major part of that study. And I'm saying from that time the structure and function of ecosystem. What is structure and function of ecosystem? The structure is the species diversity in an ecosystem that defines the ecosystem. Like if there are presence of more marine um, species, then inside the water, then we will say it's aquatic environment or aquatic ecosystem with marine species, so marine ecosystem. Like that, the function of an ecosystem of the ecosystem related to the energy flow and material cycles within and outside the system. So, if we go to the functions of ecosystem, that includes food web, food chain, the energy flow within the tropic levels, different tropic levels, and the biogeochemical cycles that maintain the balance of the ecosystem which occurs inside the particular ecosystem. So that defines the function of the ecosystem. And like I said earlier, the relative amount of energy needed to maintain an ecosystem depends on its structure. If we have a complex ecosystem like forest ecosystem, so it requires less energy to maintain, because in a forest there is a presence of a variety of species diversity. There is diversity. So one um, like plants, they give out carbon dioxide, oxygen, everything to the nature, and the animals use it. So if there is a ecosystem to a complex level, then we have to provide less energy to maintain it. It will be self-maintaining in itself. And the young ecosystems develop and change from less complex to more complex ecosystems through the process called succession. And succession is very important for an ecosystem. If we remain in the initial stage of succession, then there will be loss of biodiversity and loss of ecosystem, because every evolution in the history requires survival of the fittest. So if um, the plants or the animals will not go through the successive stages in their life cycle, then they will not survive the the changes going around them. So each ecosystem has its own budget, so which cannot be exceeded. That means it has a particular equilibrium point out of which it cannot overcome that. And adaptation is an important feature of the biotic components, because if they will not adapt according to this situation, according to the environmental changes, they will not survive. So the function of every ecosystem involves a series of cycles like water cycle, nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle. They are driven by energy, and the existence of ecosystem depends on the exchange of nutrients to and from different components. So these are the main characteristics of an ecosystem. And next we will go to the structural components of an ecosystem. This gives the basic idea about ecosystem structures. Ecosystem consists of two components, abiotic and biotic. Abiotic are non-living components which include inorganic materials, organic compounds, and climatic factors. And biotic components involve the living matter, which are producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers are of two types, photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. Producers are also called autotrophs, and consumers are also called heterotrophs. There are four types: primary, secondary, tertiary, and quaternary. We'll go into detail all this. And last one is decomposers. Now, abiotic component. Abiotic component are the non-living um, environment of an ecosystem. It includes non-living physiochemical factors like air, water, soil, the basic elements that are required for survival in the environment. And soil provides plants home, provides a place where nutrients are stored from which the plants will take up all the nutrients, and sun provides heat, light for photosynthesis, and water is essential for all the life forms. So now we will go through one by one. First one is in organic materials. These are actually simpler materials that are built up to form complex compounds that make up the body of a human or living organisms. So, like carbon, hydrogen, phosphorus, calcium, potassium, sulfur are all macronutrients which are required in large amounts. They are actually abundantly available also, and uh, these uh, these are very essential for life. And other elements which are required in small amounts by our body are called micronutrients like magnesium, zinc, cobalt. These are required just in little amount. So uh, all these inorganic materials that helps our body to survive comes under this category. And if there is a lack of these nutrients in our body, then there will be um, diseases or disorders according to which material is in shortage. So next one is organic compounds. Organic compounds are found in dissolved or particulate matter, and they are synthesized by living organisms only, and passed into the body of other living organisms through feeding and return to the ecosystem as their waste or dead remains, like fats, carbohydrates, proteins. They are the organic matter that are produced by bodies of living organism. And um, as the breakdown of organic matter proceeds, we get humus, which is good for soil. And next one is climatic factors. They include temperature, light, humidity, rainfall, salinity, etc. They actually determine the um, condition in which the living organisms can survive, or the abundance of the organisms in a particular habitat. So, in aquatic ecosystem, temperature, salinity, they are important attributes. Um, they affect their abundance in the aquatic ecosystem. And if there is deflection in these factors, then it will severely affect the ecosystem. Due to global warming, there is heating of water. So if the water heats up so much, then the fishes inside the water cannot tolerate such large increase in temperature, as they are cold-blooded. So they will get into shock and they will die. So these are very important factors that are important to determine the survival of some species. So you have to watch out for all the anthropogenic activities that we are doing. Now, the biotic component, the living organisms of an ecosystem together form the biotic components, and they include plants, animals, and microbes. And based on the role they play in the ecosystem, they are divided into three major parts: producers, consumers, and decomposers. First one is producers. They are capable of producing their own food from non-living, simple or inorganic compounds, and they are also called autotrophs. There are two types: photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. So those organisms like green plants, some protease, the and green sulfur bacteria, they uh, have a green pigment called chlorophyll, which helps them to synthesize simple organic compounds using the abiotic factors like carbon dioxide, water, minerals in the presence of sunlight, and produce um, the produced food is glucose or starch. So this is the equation where they require carbon dioxide and water. In the presence of light, they form glucose and oxygen. And photo means light, and auto means self, and trophs means nourishment. So this combining this forms autotrophs, means the self uh, nourishment using light. And chemoautotrophs are some bacteria like sulfur bacteria, nitrifying bacteria. They capture the energy released during inorganic chemical reactions and prepare organic food from using that energy. So they are called chemoautotrophs, and this is the equation where instead of using H2O water, they are using hydrogen sulfide, H2S, and producing the same glucose but with another sulfur as a byproduct. And next one is consumers. Consumers are the organisms that eat other organisms. That means they depend on others for their food. So they are divided into four categories: primary consumers or consumers of first order, secondary consumers or the consumers of second order, tertiary consumers or consumers of third order, or quaternary consumers or top consumers. So in this, primary consumers are the organisms which eat producers like plants. So they are generally herbivores, but some omnivores means those organisms that eat both plants and animals. So we are omnivores. We directly eat some uh, fresh green vegetables or leafy vegetables. So we also come under primary consumers sometimes. And secondary consumers are those who kill and eat the herbivores. So their major example are carnivores, but sometimes omnivores also come under secondary because there are some predators who kill the herbivores to get their food. And tertiary consumers are those organisms which eat or kill and eat the secondary consumers, like snake eats frog. The frog are secondary consumers because they feed on the uh, plants or insects, etc. And quaternary or top consumers are the carnivores, are the top predators actually, who are not killed and eaten by other animals, but they depend on tertiary consumers for their food, like lions, tigers, vultures, etc. And next one is decomposers, the last one. where decomposers are also called reducers or micro-consumers. They are nature's recyclers as they break down the organic matter found in the dead bodies of plants and animals and their waste products. They are the organisms like bacteria, fungi, and some insects that eat the nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus available on the dead bodies of plants and animals. So they are actually the waste managers of an ecosystem. Their function is of taking the dead producers, consumers, or scavengers, etc., and break down the organic compounds into simpler nutrients. And these simple nutrients get back into the soil, which can be used by the plants. And so this gives the decomposers an important role, very important role to maintain the balance in the ecosystem. And if we think without them, the organic matter will pile up in the ecosystem and the plants will not receive any nutrients, which would lead to the death of the plants, which will in turn affect the food cycle of the ecosystem, hereby um, giving the death of every members of the ecosystem. So this is for today. Thank you.